making a real difference in our communities. There have been countless stories about true generosity and compassion of the true Ontario spirit, shining brightly through these dark times. Stories like Royal Canadian Legion volunteers in Brighton, who created a wall of hearts to thank our frontline workers. A Legion Hall in Aurora, who offered their facilities early in the crisis so people could donate blood. Or a $100,000 donation to Project Trauma Support in Perth to help veterans and first responders wrestling with post-traumatic stress disorder. Friends, I just love our Legion Halls. I've been a member of Branch 286 for years. Not only do they lead us in honoring our heroes, but they do incredible work in our communities, educating our young people, providing services to veterans and their families, and giving back to their communities in so many ways. The same is true of many other charities and nonprofits, our food banks, children and youth services, church groups, and many, many others. That work has been absolutely critical throughout this crisis. The volunteers at our Legion branches, the volunteers at our food banks, the people delivering meals to our seniors and those with disabilities. They have all been true heroes, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. Our Legion Halls, food banks, and charities. They are the bedrock of our communities. They provide hot meals, groceries, peer support and counseling, housing supports, care for our seniors, and programs for our children and youth. For every aspect of physical and mental well-being, they are there for those who need it most. And above all, they build a sense of community, that you're not alone. We will all get through this together because we have each other's backs. We will all have a role to play in supporting their work, whether it's volunteering our time, donating a few dollars, or asking friends and family to help out. Inspired by the Ontario spirit, our government has a role to play too. That's why I'm proud to announce today we'll be investing $83 million in the new Resilient Communities Fund through the Ontario Trillium Foundation. This funding will help nonprofit organizations build their fundraising capacity, recruit more volunteers, provide physical and mental health supports for staff, develop health and safety plans, and buy new equipment or renovate their facilities to better serve their clients and communities. We need those top-notch organizations to continue supporting and strengthening our communities as they recover from the impacts of COVID-19. And as more parts of Ontario enter stage 3, they'll be there to help people get back on their feet. My friends, we're all in this together. Let's keep that Ontario spirit going. Thank you, and God bless the people of Ontario. Now I'll hand it over to Minister MacLeod.
Thank you, Premier. The Royal Canadian Legion is a valued part of Ontario's history and our culture, not to mention an integral part of many communities that Ontario's nonprofits work to strengthen through numerous programs and seniors programs, arts and culture initiatives, and much more. That's why this investment, made through the Ontario Trillium Foundation, is so important. It will provide grants to help eligible Legion branches and nonprofits respond to the new challenges created by the COVID-19 pandemic. Our government recognizes how deeply the COVID-19 outbreak has affected Ontario's nonprofit sector. From loss of revenue as a result of canceled fundraisers to disruption of services to community members, to loss of income by staff, we know that the pandemic has made it difficult for the sector to continue operating. That's why we're taking action to support initiatives like the Resilient Communities Fund that are making such a positive contribution to communities across Ontario during this trying time. As we gradually reopen this province, it is critical that we get to our local communities back up and running on their feet by supporting the dedicated men and women who selflessly give their time to various causes across the province. I've seen firsthand how important Legion Halls are to the communities they serve, and I'm honored to champion them. I deeply value the connections I've made, the stories I've listened to, and the experiences I've been a part of at Legion Halls across Ontario just like my own branch, 641, in Barrhaven, just outside of Ottawa. I encourage all Legion branches and nonprofit organizations who may need assistance to contact the Ontario Trillium Foundation or visit www.otf.ca for more information. Thank you.
We're going to go to the phone line for questions. Just a reminder that it's one question and one follow-up.
Your first question comes from Colin DeMello with CTV News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, good afternoon, Premier. Just had a question about the federal announcement today that Canada will be procuring millions of doses of vaccines. Do you know, or what is your hope in terms of Ontario's share of that? You've said in the past that you always wanted to be per capita. Yeah. Has there been any discussion of that thus far?
Not in depth, not to that point, but we do expect 38% of anything the feds distribute throughout the country. We would like to see 38% of those vaccines. And we'll have a further discussion with the Deputy Prime Minister.
Follow-up?
All right, and on another topic, on education, there are still a lot of parents who are, very concerned about the return to school. And yesterday, you didn't really provide any kind of alternative plan here other than to say, parents, you can keep your kids at home if you choose. That obviously isn't, an adequate solution for a lot of parents who live in, at-risk communities where there may be a single-parent household, don't necessarily have the means to keep their children at home. So for parents who are still feeling uncomfortable about this plan, is there any way before September that your government is going to consider cutting class sizes in elementary schools down to 15?
Well, Colin, first of all, let's address the class sizes right off the hop. And I'm going to read off these notes, which I usually don't, but there's a lot of numbers here. So anywhere in kindergarten, we have capped at 30 students, and that's with an ECE and a teacher. So that's the lowest in the country. Other provinces might have it capped at 20, but they have one teacher. We have the lowest in the entire country when it comes to grades 1 and 3, capped at 20. Grades 4 to 8 is 24.5, the average, and 9 to 12 is 23. We have the lowest cohorts in the entire country at 15, when we see BC's at 60, and I think it goes up to 120 or 130. We have more guidelines in place than anyone in the entire country. And as I said yesterday, as much as yes, we rely on consulting with Sick Kids Hospital and public health and our health table and CHEO and everyone else. At the end of the day, Colin, I'm responsible. And, going into September, talk about losing sleep. That's my number one priority, to protect the kids. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect the kids. I saw an article, which was very interesting. Parents in BC were touting Ontario's plan, saying we want Ontario's plan. We put in more guidelines, more consultation with scientists from healthcare to you name it. But at the end of the day, who's responsible? This guy right here. I'm responsible, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that we protect these kids. And I feel we got the best advice. I personally feel, I'm a little biased, but we have the best plan in the entire country. And we have two options here. We bring the kids into school, which I'm hearing vast majority of the parents want to get back to the normal or new normal, or you keep your kids at home and you do online courses. So they're really the two options here. We have scenarios that may pop up in September, October, November with flu season. We're going to have to react. And those are the three scenarios we gave before, but we're doing everything we can. And I'm not holding back on a penny here. As I mentioned before, and again, I apologize for running through these numbers here, reading them off, but there's a lot of numbers. School reopening, $309 million. We're putting more money per student than anywhere in the entire country, bar none. PPE, $60 million. Additional staffing, $80 million. Cleaning supplies, $25 million. 500, and this is so important. This is the best that you don't see anywhere else in the country. 500 new public nurses at $50 million, and then $10 million for children with special needs, which is super important. Taking care of the kids with special needs. So that's just some of the items, and we're all going to have to work together. Is it going to be perfect? No. You put 2 million of anyone, not to mention students, in a system and 160,000 teachers, we have to be prepared. And I feel we are. And I just want to thank all the people that we consulted with. But make no mistake about it, at the end of the day, it's my responsibility. And I'll make sure I do anything to keep our kids safe. And I mean anything to make sure they're safe.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Lucas Meyer with News Talk 1010. Please go ahead.
Hi, Lucas.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Premier. And this is a little bit to start off of what Colin was just asking about, because specifically on class sizes, you mentioned you've been relying on sick kids as part of the plan, but it does say, and I'm quoting, smaller class sizes should be a priority strategy as it will aid in physical distancing. This is all stuff we know. But considering at this point that they're not completely off the table depending on what the boards do, my question is, the $310 million that you just talked about, is that it? Is that the final cash amount being handed out and boards are going to have to do what they can with it? Or if they came and said, hey, we need more to ensure safety, could you write another check?
Well, that's throughout this whole pandemic. You say this is about as much as we have, and then it turns into a crisis, and you have to put more money in. But again, I've proven to the public, it's not about dollars and cents when it comes to me on this pandemic. We spent a fortune making sure that we're in the position that we're in right now, and to protect everyone. Now, our focus is to make sure we protect our children. So I'll never say never, put it that way. But this is the budget we've laid out. It's the largest in the country. It's the largest per pupil in the entire country. So I think we're pulling our weight, to say the least.
Follow up.
Thank you very much. And Premier, still with education, but on the technical side, obviously you want lots of people, really everyone, to download the tracing app. I'm curious if, because of the proximity needs, you may lift the current cell phone ban rules that came into place back in November if you think it'll lead to more accurate readings. Is that something that you're potentially looking at doing?
Well, we can look at that. And I understand when you put these apps out, not everyone's going to upload them, and they're giving me ballpark percentages. But even a small percentage really helps out. No matter, even if it's 10%, let's say, and I'm just throwing those numbers out. It could be 20, it could be 50. But I encourage everyone to download it, and even 10% really helps the system tremendously. If someone has COVID, at least we can track it and trace it and get in contact with them. So I think this is, again, I think it's a no-brainer. Download it if you can, and we're going to be able to trace it so much easier. This is the reason we're doing so well, because everyone in Ontario is listening, vast majority of the people. But we're doing fairly well, but we can't take our eye off the ball. As I say, every press conference, we have to keep going. But I think the cases, what were they, 81 or 86? We're doing pretty good overall.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Mike Crawley with CBC News. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Premier. Another question about education. So you keep saying that you're not going to spare any expense, and the Sick Kids report does say that smaller class sizes are key. Why is the government not providing the funding to allow for 15 children in each cohort in elementary schools? I think that's a number that people have been, they see it at the secondary level. Why are you not providing the funding to allow for 15 students per class at the elementary level?
Okay, so the elementary level, all the way going back to JK, we have the lowest in the country. We have 15. You want to take 2 teachers, divide 30 by 2, that's 15. Grades 1 to 3 is 20. It's the lowest in the country. We've given the school boards across the province $80 million. If they need some additional staffing for the lower grades, it's there. So I think it's a good plan. I don't, we could play armchair quarterback all day long, everyone. But at the end of the day, I'm relying on sick kids, CHEO, public health, health table. That's who I'm relying on, the health and the science when it comes down to this. I keep saying over this whole pandemic, I'm not the health expert. I'm no scientist. But I rely on some of the brightest minds in the entire country to help us out and get us through this. So there's $80 million sitting there on the table for people that need the support. Now, keep in mind, everyone thinks one size fits all. And, you know, we live in a bubble to a certain degree in Toronto, and we don't think anywhere else exists. Well, I'm sorry. We're a fraction of the population. It's an important part of Ontario, but we're 20% in Toronto. How about 80% that all live in the rural areas that they haven't seen cases in months? So we're trying to adapt and make sure everyone, you know, is comfortable. And I get it. Not all parents are going to be 100% comfortable. I wish I had just the magical wand to say everyone's going to be perfectly fine. Let's see. We're relying on the best health minds in the country.
Follow up?
So for Premier, for those parents who choose not to send their kids into school and they select the fully online option, how are you going to ensure that the quality of the instruction that kids receive is better than what happened in the spring?
Well, Mike, first of all, I always believe there's nothing better than in-class teaching. There's nothing better than that. Online is a substitute for in-class teaching, but it all depends on the teacher. Again, if we have, and I believe we have great teachers, you have 160,000 of them, you're going to have, you know, vast majority are great teachers. You're going to have the odd teachers, not as good as the others, but again, it's proven over and over again. It's proven when you went to school, Mike, or I went to school. When you have a phenomenal teacher, you just seem to do better in their class. When you have a lousy teacher, and there's very few of them, in my opinion, we have great teachers here, then you aren't going to do as well. It's as clear as day.
Next question.
Your next question comes from Cynthia Mulligan with City News. Please go ahead.
Hey, Cynthia.
Hello, Premier. How are you today?
Good. Well, they've lined up all the heavy hitters one after the other. So you're going to be clean up on the fourth hitter?
Yeah,
okay, go ahead.
That's my role today.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to stick with education because as my predecessors have noted, my colleagues have noted that the Sick Kids plan specifically does say that smaller classes should be a priority. And yet you keep saying you're relying on the expert advice from Sick Kids. So there's a disparity there. Like, are you passing the buck when
No, not at all, Cynthia. If it was up to all of us, we'd have 5 kids in a classroom. But in saying that, we have the lowest amount of kids in JK in the country. We have the lowest kids from grades 1 to 3 in the country. We have 15 kids, equivalent to 15 kids for every teacher or ECE. So we're doing pretty good. Let's give this a shot at least. And when I hear people from BC chanting that they want the Ontario plan, that's not bad. You know, BC is doing well, but they don't have half the guidelines that we have. We have some stringent guidelines, more than anyone else in the country. So we're going to give it everything we can and make sure that we move forward and pray to God that everyone's safe. That's what I want. Just the kids to be safe.
Follow up.
I give you that, Premier. You are getting accolades for the masking, for example, which epidemiologists say is really important. But when you say you have a cap in kindergarten at 15 with an ECE and kindergarten teacher,
30.
That's still 30 kids potentially in one class. So it's not the ratio of adults that is important. It's the number of kids that are in the class together. And I guess my question is, in the more densely populated areas, are you making this decision because it's too costly or too difficult to lower the class sizes, or because you genuinely believe that up to 30 kids in a class is going to be safe?
Well, let's just clarify that. So we're going to have 2 teachers. We're going to have cohorts of 15 within the classroom too. So it's really, they're going to keep the kids separate. But in saying that, we have $80 million for large urban areas. If they need to get more support, they're going to get more support. That's what it comes down to. But I think we have a good plan. I have to rely on the advice of all the experts, and that's what we did. And as I said yesterday, Cynthia, you know, God forbid any of our children ever get sick. You're bringing them to sick kids if they really get sick. They're experts, and the experts are recommending certain guidelines, and we're trying to keep by those guidelines. And then we go to the public health and we go to our health table and the scientists, and we're going to everyone and their cousin to make sure we have the right advice. And I think they've done a really, really good job in giving us the proper advice, and we're implementing it. And we have to read and react. If we get hit with a flu season, we get hit with a second wave, then we react, and we have a plan for stage 2 per se. And that's what we're going to do. And I won't hesitate if this thing, we have a second wave and it starts blowing up, close the schools. Whatever it takes to protect the kids. We can always make up the time, but we can't make up the time if we have a second wave.
Last question.
Your final question comes from Dave Woodard with Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
Hi, Dave.
Please go ahead.
How you doing, Dave?
Dave?
Dave, you may have us on mute.
Oh, hi. Thank you for that. Appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
Since York Region's been in stage 3 for some time now, over a week, we're wondering why Canada's Wonderland hasn't been reopened yet, and if so, when is it going to reopen?
Well, I got a message from the person that runs it, but I'm going to pass this over to the minister. We can answer that.
Thanks very much. I know that Canada's Wonderland, Calypso theme park just outside of Ottawa, Santa's Village just up in the Muskoka area are all really excited about the great protocols that they've put in place. Having said that, the Chief Medical Officer of Health has advised our government, and we have accepted his science, that theme parks and water parks of those nature still pose a significant threat as a result of COVID-19, and therefore will not be able to open at this time. We recognize the seasonal nature. That is why when all of Ontario does move into stage 3, we will continually reassess this. This is not new. We are doing the same type of work with our meeting and convention centers, with our gym facilities. We've dealt with it as a result of our professional sports, and we'll continue to look at other areas, including the OHL. But at this time, we are not confident, given the circulation of people coming from different parts of Ontario and different parts of Canada at this point in time, to open those themed parks until the rest of Ontario, all of Ontario, is in stage 3. So happy to take a follow-up.
Follow-up?
So the minister, why is something like Marineland allowed to reopen? They're playing ads all over the place now. So I guess my question is, why the difference?
Yeah, I mean, a good question. I think if you go across Ontario, we are looking at some tourism and cultural attractions safely reopening. Ripley's, for example, here in Toronto. Many of our art galleries and museums as well, with a limited high touch. This we don't feel as a result of the information we've received from the command table, particularly from the Chief Medical Officer of Health, that we would be in a safe environment in order to permit them to open at this time. Again, I recognize the seasonal nature, as do all my colleagues, of these businesses. That said, we've taken the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health and his team, as we've done the entire way throughout this entire process of COVID-19. And again, we've had many conversations with Wonderland, many conversations with some of the other theme parks, but unfortunately the answer at this point in time is no, but we have committed to continually reassessing.
Thank you, everyone.
That's great. Thank you, everyone.